Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Well, again, we have our extra special guest, Laurie Wilson, with us. This is kind of an exciting period because our last show in January, she was saying how she'd gotten 24,000 people on the intuitive classes, and now she's at 25,000, and she has a brilliant offer that, well, I don't think anybody is being quite so generous. So I am so excited to have you back on the show, Laurie. And honestly, your generosity is amazing. So let's talk about this newest and greatest event that you have now brought in.
Thank you for having me back so soon. It's lovely to be here, Laurie. Always wonderful to speak with you and your audience. Yes, it's been a busy spring. Amazing, and more and more people continuing to find out about our work. As you know, we teach specialized intuition classes, a variety of intuition classes. We've got over 70 now on our website. And when we have these markers or these goals that we set with myself and my spirit guide, right? Because I work with intuition and spirit energies, and we teach about guides and energies. And so our last goal that was, probably way back in maybe the early, I'm trying to think of it was early 90s. Grandmother said, surely 25,000 people who trust themselves, trust their intuition, will make the world a better place. And that's a good chunk. That's a good number. I think at the time we had 2,000 students, and we thought that was a lot. Oh. And so that was the goal we were working toward. So after last month when we spoke, it's like, okay, we're getting close to that number. Is it making a difference? Is the world a better place? Yes, it continually is because of all the people in it and for all the choices we're making. But then grandmother, and I have another guide that I don't talk about too much because I don't use him professionally, but Poseidon is one of my personal guides. And so grandmother and Poseidon kind of met with me in my journal, journal writing. And Poseidon announces, like, the next number that's going to make the biggest difference is 1 million, 1 million students. And I was like, what? That's a big jump from 25,000. So I was basically mute for a couple of days, like trying to figure this out. And then they continued to elaborate that we were to give away our signature class, which is a $249 value. It's not nothing. It's our main class, our foundation class. And we were to gift that to 1 million people. It's like, okay. And it's not like I'm going to get struck by lightning if I don't listen to their advice or suggestions, but they also have a much higher perspective about what's going on in the world energetically, right? And this is the year, we talked about this last time we were together, this is the year, grandmother said in her yearly focus, where peace reigns. And so then they explained that with 1 million people trusting themselves more, trusting their intuition, knowing they can connect with, more invisible wisdom, being discerning. God, we could only be more discerning about what's true and what's not true and where to focus our time and effort. All of the tools that are available when you trust your intuition more and connect with different sources of wisdom, then that's going to make a dent and also really contribute to holding this frequency of peace. So it's like, okay, our mission statement is changing worlds with inner trust. And we've had that mission statement since the early 90s. Mm-hmm. But now this is changing worlds with inner trust in the year where peace reigns. We need to bump up the volume of people holding that frequency of intuition and trust, but also the same frequency is peace, because we are always, well, you know this, you know, we're much more peaceful when we're trusting ourselves, when we're connecting with more, whether you're meditating, whether you're out in nature, whether you're, you know, walking your dog, whether you're doing art or creative energy, like it's that same frequency of calm and peace. So that's our mission for this year, is to get that 1 million people taking that class, so they all have the same tools, and we can start speaking this language of, you know, higher connection with more people. And then for fun, I did the math. I think I did the math right. Don't quote me on the math. Math is not my forte, but I thought, if there is 1 billion people on this planet, then if we have 1 million people trusting themselves more and really knowing how to navigate their intuition and use it actively, then really we would represent 1 in 8,000 people on this planet.
Right.
That's pretty cool. So in a town, even in a small town, you know, there's going to be 2 or 3 people. In a medium-sized town, there's going to be 20, you know, 50 people. In a large town, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of people that it's like, hey, we could nod to each other on the way past the street. It's like, you know what I know? Haha. Yeah, the world is a lot bigger than we think. So I thought, okay, well, fasten my seatbelt, on we go. So it's only been we just launched it yesterday. So it's lovely that I'm here talking about it today. And already there's a lot of people signed up for that. It's wonderful. Yeah. So hopefully you'll be able to share the link with your readers or with your listeners as well, so to have them jump on board and learn all about intuition.
Yes. And the way that energy expands is the important piece too, because I mean, I'm sure you've read something of David Hawkins, but he, you know, the way energy expands, that 1 million people can literally change the world. I mean, it starts with 1. So here you have 1 million people, 1,025,000 people that are all in, you know, in this intuition that they're developing, and it's going to be powerful. Like,
I believe so. And I'm grateful that it's come at this stage in my career where, you know, I've got staying power, and I've been around a little while, and I can really see it, and I can hold that energy. You know, the 25,000 students that we have as this kind of container, basically, it's the base of our container. I think about, you know, this lovely basket that we've made of trust and trusting ourselves and our intuition. So we've got a really strong base already. And now I can see that basket growing and growing, and being able to hold and grow more people in that same kind of trust. I had a beautiful, beautiful email sent in from one of our students who's taken a lot of our classes. And, you know, I was sharing just privately in a smaller group, like, you know, 1 million people, there's a bit of a task from the spirit world. And she said, you know, the value that she has gotten from our classes just in the last few years alone, she says, I can hardly wait to be in a world where 1 million people feel like I do. And I thought, what a beautiful way of sharing that. So it's been nice. I just got an email this morning from a student that took our class back in 2000, you know, 24 years ago. And she says, oh, I never told you what I did with the class. I love we talk about 8 different sources of wisdom, 8 different places you could go. And one of that is to our loved ones who've passed on, which if you only do that exclusively, that would be called mediumship. And so she says, I love that one. I went, you know, open up my practice, and I'm doing mediumship. I've been doing it for all of these years, and has made such a difference in people's lives. So it'd be really nice to, you know, have a little chicken soup for the soul of what did I do with my intuition skills, and hear about how it is spreading, like you said, Laurie, far and wide, really.
Right. I can already feel the impact that it's making. So,
well, thank you.
I mean, the impact of the 25,000 was powerful, but taking it to that next level is going to be
Yeah.
astronomical.
Well, thank you. And we all make our own difference, right? We all, well, most people we're privileged to pay attention to and spend time with are really wanting to make the world a better place. And that can be it's just as simple as smiling at somebody as you pass them by on the street. And some people, have different ways that they make a difference. And I remember I told a story not that long ago that when I was young, probably 12 or so, I I was talking about how to get the French and English kids getting along a little bit better in our school. This is back in the 70s where, the in Quebec, so the English and French were clashing. Well, they are still, but not as badly. And so like fist fights at recess and things like that. And so I was pondering at home, like how to make us get along and what could we do, as much as my 12-year-old self could grasp. And my mom said, Laurie, what are you trying to do? Like save the world? And it was like, yes, Mom, you got it. I was so happy. And she goes, well, that's silly, ridiculous. And I was like, so I remember running down to the beach, which was my sanctuary. And we were right along the St. Lawrence River and just, crying and seeking comfort in the rocks. And I thought, when I grow up, I'm going to look after like 200 people. And that was the beginning. Like here I'm in my 60s now, and it's like, well, 200 people. I made that commitment when I was 12, and every year it kind of changes the numbers a little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, but it's that same desire to see more peace and more people knowing how big the world is. Like, yes, our world is big and we have technology. We can fly around, we can take pictures, we can send drones up, we can do all kinds of things. But do we really know how big the world is when we take into account all of the invisible and energetic forces? Mm-hmm. So in our class, just in case anyone knows, like, well, what do you learn and what do you do? We spend a fair bit of time in the first module talking about what is intuition and what are some guidelines for intuition and really how to demystify it and take the fear out of it and kind of update some of our paradigms around intuition, because a lot of times we're still teaching things that are like 20 years out of date energetically. Mm-hmm. And then we spend time going to 8 unique sources of wisdom to explore it. So our higher self, our spirit guides, a past life aspect of ourselves, our body, animals and elements of nature that are on the earth. And then we go beyond the earth and what do any energies and guides feel like up there. Loved ones who have passed on and universal wisdom. So those are like 8 places you could go for guidance and comfort and perspective. And then we use 8 different tools, 8 different ways to go find those sources of wisdom, because we're all so different, and how I connect and receive information is going to be different than you, different than our other friends. Some people see things, some people hear things, some people feel it in their body, other people want to move or draw or dance. So we use a lot of different ways to go get the information, so people aren't saying, well, I'm not intuitive. I know. Because they've only tried one way to go get the information. Well, maybe they haven't found their way yet. Yeah. Yeah. So it's fun. It's playful. It's got information, but then we practice it right there. And even when I say we, you're doing it online. It's a pre-recorded class. You are doing the exercises with yourself or arrange to do it with some others. And gosh, if we get our 1 million, we'll have a lot of people to practice with. So we can look for practice partners on the street. Yeah, which would be super fun.
That would be super fun. I think you should create, oh no, you're not on social media. I'm so good. You should create a group where they can all sort of join and
well, we will be doing that on our platform. So we will be making a community, it'll be called. So yeah. Won't be a Facebook book so that we can then get censored. It's like, nope, we'll just do it ourselves. Yeah. So it'll be really, really quite fun. And we've seen in class, whether we've had a small class of 10 or 12 people, when we taught in person for not from 1994 we started right up until 2017. We taught in person, and we, whether it was a small group or a large group, just the friendships and the excitement and the like, oh, somebody else is thinking like I am, or I don't need to be embarrassed about being curious about what's out there. I'm not weird or woo-woo, or it's like, no, it's more and more natural every year to want to know how to connect with the trees, or, how to connect with people who have passed on, or I had this dream. Was it a dream? Or
Right.
getting less and less strange every year, which is awesome.
Yes.
We used to have people pay us out of, cash, because it was their grocery money they had saved for half a year to come and take this class. They were really visiting their sister-in-law, and it was like almost like this secret gathering we were having. And now, yeah, I took an intuition class. Don't you know? It's not strange at all anymore.
It really isn't, but it's funny how it has progressed. But it's true. Mostly prior to the year of 2000, I mean, even prior to the 90s, most of them were, either auditory or visual. So a lot of it was always clairvoyant or clairaudient, and they didn't understand clairsentient. And when I was trying to develop my intuition again after I'd completely shut it down when I was a child, because people did not like me knowing how they were feeling, and I didn't understand the difference. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But I had to totally relearn, and it had its own challenges, because it's like, well, I'm not that. I can definitely see things now, but they're more symbolic. They're not, and I think they always have been, but I think a lot of egos get involved with clairvoyant and clairaudient as well, because it's like they want to be right, so they, see things and yeah. I have a whole issue around psychics. The word psychics is a little bit of a bugaboo for me, because I find that it is disempowering, because there's a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy happening when people go to a psychic and they're told, well, it's going to happen like this, and so people start looking for the this, right, instead of going, wait a minute, they only got that from where I am right now.
Right.
Can make a difference.
Well, and again, we teach, the work we teach is channeling, which is different than psychic, because channeling always has a third party. Like, where am I plugged into for that wisdom? I'm going to flow it forward from that higher place of wisdom. The main challenge I've seen, and I'm not saying there's a lot of really good psychics out there, and a lot of students that we've trained that are excellent at it, but the main challenge, which is what you're talking about, is if they go just like, if people say, well, what's the difference? What does a psychic do? I'm using my intuition as a psychic to go to your energy field and read and perceive whatever's kind of bouncing off your field. If you're really worried about something, or you're fairly sure you're not going to get that job, and I don't know that I'm just reading or perceiving with my intuition your mind, your worst nightmare, or your fear, or something's going on in your body health-wise, and you're hoping that it's not something traumatic. If I don't know how to tease apart, I'm actually perceiving your mental thoughts that are worried about this, and I tell you, you're not going to get that job. I knew it. It's like, well, the self-fulfilling prophecies, because I've read your mind, or your concern, or your worry, but I haven't necessarily looked beyond, like, into, well, are you getting that job or not? So that part is limited in what's possible. And when you talk about ego or needing to be right, I think everyone would like to be right and accurate. I think that's pretty human. But sometimes if we come across something confusing, whether we're visual or auditory, or we feel it in our body, and we get one of those random images, like, we teach our students, just take what pops in there first and just follow that. So that image, or that random song, or, some strange scene that seems not related to anything, and maybe the person can relate, if you just stop there and you don't follow it and follow it and follow it, then you're not going, the client's not going to be able to make any sense of it. They may not, or we certainly don't have to. Sometimes our guides and other energies are kind of encrypting that message or that vague symbol so that the person will understand it, but you won't. I had somebody, one of our students in one of our advanced classes was doing like practicing, and I was tracking to see how he was doing, staying connected to his guide. And then he was starting to get visuals, but he's like, wow, I don't understand this, or this doesn't seem interesting. Basically, I said, no, stay with it. Stay with that random image. And without giving the details, because that was his private session that he did for me, like as soon as he started following the images and getting this piece and being more confused by the moment that this was not making any sense because it was a business question, I was laughing because it was so relevant. And if I took the symbol, to represent our students and what was happening with it, it was hysterical. And just a little quick inside part of that, part of the stages of this fishing thing that was going on that his guide was showing us, the second stage, and this was before Christmas, so it wasn't anywhere near now. The second stage was that there was so much fish, we just had to wrap it out and give them away for free. Well, what are we doing now? We're wrapping those fishes up as fast as we can and sharing that. And that was even before my guides had told me this is what we're doing. So I just thought it was amazing.
Right.
But he was like not even going to tell me that random image because he didn't understand it. I didn't understand it fully till I'd been given the directive from my guides, wrap those fishes. It's called the class and out you go. So I just love how if we just flow with what we're given from these invisible energies, it may make sense in ways that are so rich over time you can't even,
Right.
You couldn't have made that up.
Right.
Yeah.
We try to, if we get out of the way. And I think that's the bigger thing, is that a lot of time there's a lot of wounded healers out there. So their own wounds come to play because they're filtering it in through themselves instead of, again, as you say, looking at the other person. But it's hard when you have, if you're not doing any work on yourself, yet you're going to try and help others. Well, you're going to find that they help you just as much as you help them, which is in a case regardless anyway, as long as you're open to it. But yeah.
Well, if we get in the way, I mean, some students, will ask that question in class or even, an email saying, well, but I want to be right.
Yeah.
Or one of our guidelines is don't censor what you're getting and don't interpret. And it's like, but this image of the fish, for example, doesn't make any sense. So, Jesus and fish is fish. So we start making these associations and we start interpreting, but it's not up to us to interpret because it's going to be limited to our experience. We'll leave it as a gift for the client and let them go away and make sense of it. So whether that's that wounded part, as you said, Laurie, or just that desire to be competent, which is, I think, a part of human nature, especially people who are in helping fields. It's like, I'm always saying that giant loving heart and that giant desire to do a good job can get in our way because we're receiving invisible wisdom, that we may not even understand ourselves, even if we were hugely competent and we're 1,000 years old and knew everything we could possibly gather.
And have no ego. Yeah, no, exactly. It's just...
Pretty sure the trees know more than we do.
Yeah. Definitely. It's interesting. I find, that's the part of intuition that I really love, is that it's like we don't have to have the judgments. We certainly have learned how to judge others, and I'm guessing everybody's kind of seeing that since COVID. It's amazing how people are still so angry out there, but I guess the war or whatever, people are really taking it seriously, and U.S. elections seem to be ramping up their unique energy. It's just fascinating, right? It's fascinating watching the world, and then you kind of go, wow, like how do we help? How do we help the most?
Yeah.
You're doing it because that million people, that it's going to change. It really seriously is going to change the world, because there's enough people that it becomes a tipping point that it will tip.
Yeah. Well, and you're speaking to a lot of truth, Laurie, because people will say, like, how can I as one person make a difference? And that, you know, there's a lot of horrible things going on. There's not pretend all throughout the world, or in our own backyard, or in our own families, like the things that go on. I'm a social worker. I hear in individual worlds, you know, what goes on with people. It's like, oh Lord, like this is horrible. So how do we make a difference as one person? We're taught to be disempowered, you know, or we have to wait, like grandmother talks about this being the year where peace reigns, but she's reminding us to reframe peace, that it's not something that one day, with a pat on the head, if we're good enough, it's going to arrive on our doorstep. But we have to create that frequency of peace and calm. And when we feel like there's no hope, or there's just too much out there, or how could I, with all the things that are going on that are terrible, how can I as one person make a difference? And she reminds us that if we allow ourselves to believe, or entertain anyways, that thought that as one person, as a microcosm, you know, as a little universe unto ourselves, if we beacon out what we want more of, or how we want to be, or not stick our head in the sands like, I don't want to see the world, that doesn't work, but this is how I want the world to be, is how I'm living my own life. That even though we may feel badly that somebody else has a hard time, or is suffering more than we are, if we just keep beaconing out that microcosm, what it does is it balances things better, which is good. It also shows people that they too can be that microcosm, and that you'll be different than I will, and we'll all be kind of modeling different things. But if we each took that time to do that, even, it's not like, and I'm sure I can speak for both of us, it's not like horrible things have not happened to either of us. I don't even think I would want my list known, you know, it's like, yuck. But at the same time, we all can make a choice, and how we respond to it, or react to it, or heal from it, or look at it, or frame it, then we can keep being that model of what we want instead. Not, you know, pushing it away and not doing our own work. We have to do that.
Yes.
But I remember a martial arts instructor I had one time, certifiable actually, legally, yes, now. But he was really upset with me at one point, and something was happening, some bickering going on in the club, and you know, was trying to goad me into being on one team or the other. And I was a little older than a few of the people in the class doing the game. And I said, well, I'm not worried about that. You know, well, that's too bad that they think that, or, you know, I've got to go in and make lunch for my kids. Like I'm not buying in, basically. And then he like grabbed my arm really strong, and he's like, well, why are you not upset about this? He was upset about it. He wanted me to be upset about it. And I said, Sensei, you know, if I would rather be the person at the effect of all of this bad talk that they're doing, than to have to be them doing that for 1 second. Like, imagine how horrible they feel having to think that that's okay. So he yelled at me and told me to get out of the car.
Wow.
Like that was not the right attitude. But for me, obviously it was the right attitude, because we see a lot of bad things around us, and it's like, well, how do we want to be different?
Yes.
So to me, there's lots and lots of ways of doing it. Some people make their difference by singing, or, you know, being that smiling person in the checkout at the grocery store, or by, you know, painting and things like that. For us, it's like, okay, if we can give you a skill to trust yourself more and to know you're not alone. That's why we love teaching about intuition, because there's this source of wisdom and there's that source of wisdom. And what if we all could connect with our guides and our ancestors or the elements of nature, or fly out there to other planets and draw strength from some semblance of home, or, download the frequency of a tree or a plant. Like, those are fun, real things that everybody can do.
Yes.
And everybody can do it. Like, it's not just, oh, I was anointed with this intuition, or I'm the 10th generation of my intuitive family. It's like, no, everybody can learn to do this. We just need to get out of the way, like you said. Get out of our own way and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey for sure. We all kind of, I mean, it always comes back to, it has to start one person at a time. So be that one person. If you choose. And that's the thing. We always get to choose. We can choose no matter what. We can choose to feel hate and pain and suffering, or we can choose to say, wait a minute, maybe it wasn't happening to me. Maybe it was happening for me. I mean, I hate platitudes. I really do. Sometimes when you're really
when you're in it,
when you're in it, you don't want to hear it. But it's true. It's like we choose. So what are you choosing? What are you choosing this moment, right now?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to choose? Love or fear? And it sounds so simplistic, but in some ways, it's so simple.
Yes. Grandmother has a beautiful way of talking about fear in some of our classes and little ebooks, and she says fear is but a fearful child. And if a fearful child grows up and it's not looked after, it doesn't get what it wants, or it's still scared, they're just going to get more and more bullyish. Well, don't you know, here's our world, right? A whole bunch of fearful children grown up with powerful tools running it. And I don't mean every single person, but a few.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, then how do we not be the fearful child? How do we not buy into that fear that's being dosed out every time we turn around? It's like, well, I don't want to buy it. I have other things to do. I don't want to spend my whole life being afraid. So sometimes we just don't know, well, what's real or what's the truth for us. And so this is why I enjoy having people connect with other sources of wisdom that they can spend time with and ask those questions and have reflections from places where we don't really think about asking. And then see what feels right for them. See does that resonate for you? Does that resonate as truth for you? Because you could read something or a book or hear somebody talk or somebody say something, but it has to land into your heart, into your sense of truth as well. So I like people out there shopping around and connecting to their own sources of wisdom so that they can resonate more with that. Mm-hmm.
We always tend to forget. It's like we get caught up.
Mm-hmm.
We get caught up in the everyday BS that's surrounding us, and we go, wait a minute. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. I don't want to be that. I don't want to get caught up. I want to stop watching the news. I don't want to get going down a rabbit hole by, going onto social media. I don't, it's their choices.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day who's only like 26 or 27. And he says, well, that's not going to work. I was asking a question, something about our program. And he says, well, if you talk to people that are younger, you got to do things in little sound bites, because if they can get their head up from scrolling. And I thought, here's just somebody who I expect maybe if they were 50 to say that. But he's like, oh yeah, they're all stuck in scrolling land. And it's like, oh, that a 26 or 7-year-old would say that. It's terrifying. It's like, oh, okay. But you won't find us in scrolling land. I'm sorry. You'll find us on Laurie's show and on our website. And we're just here delivering service, delivering tools, and not trying to make it sound all fancy and jazzy and
You're giving away a million.
Stop there.
You're making it very fancy. Not many people can do that.
Oh, well, not fancy in the
marketing world.
Yeah, it's like I just gotta have to not fancy in the Kajabi world. Here I am with my coffee mug and my hair a certain way. It's like,
I know, right?
you know, it's okay. I mean, I could do that too, but
of course.
I don't see why you should be thinking about my hair or my coffee. I think you should be going and connecting with your guides and having fun and not really thinking about me at all.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe I'm just getting old. I'm not sure. I don't mind.
No, I don't mind either. I do it.
I know even when we taught our classes in person, and we did for years and years, and we had at one point we had 12 different trainers that were teaching our work all throughout the world, which was so exciting. And one of the things that I always said to them is, just make sure that when the students leave at the end of the day, they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about themselves and what they've learned with us, and that was something actively programmed, into the teaching position, because you're there talking to people. For us, I'm talking, I'm just talking ahead on your computer. You can't not see me. Or if I'm talking to you for 3 days in a class and you're learning, but I don't want anybody coming away from any of our classes thinking about, oh, wow, there's that person. It's like, oh, wow, I have skills now. And wow, this is what I learned. And this is who I met. And this is, my style, as opposed to all being little miniature whoever your teacher is. I think that's ideal in any modality. So we'd like people to bring their own coffee cups to their life. I only started drinking coffee this year because I heard that it was supposed to be good for your brain and good for whatever. I don't really like it, but
tea's just as good.
Just see, what's that?
Tea is just as good for your brain.
Is it okay? I just haven't mastered the art of drinking hot things yet. So.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
That's okay.
Chocolate, then. You just
chocolate, yeah.
Some dark chocolate. Just have your dark chocolate, then.
Right.
You couldn't get me to drink coffee if you paid me. I could a latte maybe like 2 or 3 times a year. That's it. If it's not got a lot of milk in it, that takes away that really bitter taste. Yeah. I love the smell of coffee beans. Love the smell. Drink.
Well, we will have to channel the essence of coffee to see what that's all about for us.
It makes me nauseous. What do you think that means? I think it means my body doesn't like coffee.
Beautiful.
Loves tea, though. I'm definitely a teetotaler. But
nice.
With my mom.
Well, I was thinking too before I came on to the show today that you've been doing this really, I think, almost as long as I have. Like we're fixtures in the trust yourself and healing and energy and intuitive world. And I thought, if I had to pick, and I wanted to ask you this question too, so and to have the listeners as well, it's like, if I could pick one word to substitute intuition, because that's what I'm all about. It's like, what frequency, like if you trusted your intuition, what frequency are you emanating? Like, what is the result of that? I sort of came up with calm, but like, I was just curious what because you obviously trust your intuition and know it too.
Me, it's all about heart.
Heart, of course. Hence your show. So what do you mean by that, Laurie? Heart. Like you live in your heart, you express your heart.
I feel everything in my heart. Everything. If I don't feel it in my heart, then I know it's probably my gut brain that's telling me something that's more about protection or safety. But when I do my intuitive work, I strictly go to my heart to feel.
Okay. Yeah.
And in some ways, when you do that, everything's perfect, right? There's never any.
Not
There's
clear.
sometimes you have to go to your gut to get some, responses for other people. But to me, it's just all about love and heart. It's expansive, and to me, that's where my soul is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. I was curious about that. I know we all know it, but then when we break the tools down into like, well, what does it make us feel? Or where does it make us go in our body? Yeah, it's like, oh, like we teach if you're going to access your intuition, you have to be just in that slightly slower brainwave pattern, that alpha, relaxed brainwave pattern. So even how you were just talking now, like it's like we're talking with our busy minds in beta vibration, but then as soon as you went to answer the question, it was just like, like you could just even hear you dropping into your heart and feeling that frequency.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, he's no longer with us, but Grant Suslow wrote an amazing book, and it's just about the three brains. So the mind, the gut, which is as large as a dog or cat's brain, and the heart. And the heart, although being the smallest, the radiance of the heart the vibration of the heart is the most powerful. Things The Secret didn't teach us. But to me, I guess that's where I go. That's where I want to go. That's where I want to be.
Beautiful. I love it. What's a
And
good brain to
they
have?
each have its own purpose. Like the brain's so multifunctional and so incredible, yet, I mean, and it's so inspiring, and it's all about, I mean, it's kind of like this big old computer, really. It tracks everything. It knows everything, but without something to sort of lead it, I guess. That's where I get the heart. It leads it. It helps it go somewhere to bring in that wealth of knowledge that we can all sort of touch, whether you believe in the Akashic records or whether it's amazing how much information and who we want to connect with and how we connect. There's so many, we're all so unique. Yeah. Every single one of us is so unique.
Beautiful. Well, and I do hear a lot of students say, and I'm sure they do to you as well, say, if I could get my head out of the way, if I could get my mind or my brain out of the way, or my mind's just the enemy, I have to quiet my mind, I have to meditate deeper. And it's like, well, your mind isn't the enemy. It needs information as to maybe a framework for what it is you're doing here, but give it a job, especially with intuitive work. It's like, give it a job to pay attention to those nuances of maybe something shifted, or maybe, it reminds you it's okay to follow that funny little image, or it's okay that this feels made up. That's normal, but we have to put the right details into the computer, like you said.
Yes.
And then use the mind, but then always go further, because our mind only knows what we put in there or what's been put in there, sometimes even unbeknownst to us, but it certainly doesn't know everything about all of the invisible realms yet. Yeah. Or maybe it does, and it's just being super quiet.
So well, you kind of have to give it that purpose, though. You have to ask it to do that. Like I think there's so much we don't know about our brain's capabilities still. That, I mean, it's far superior than we've ever given it credit, but we get in the monkey mind and we think that's the mind. Like we think our ego is our mind, and we've restricted it so much by making it that it's, as I say, sitting on a chair and spewing is not necessarily the meditation or meditative state that you even want. It's just one possibility, because it's been so recognized for thousands and thousands of years during yoga and everything. It's just one path. There's, I like a walking meditation. I like a singing, and it just something that makes it dancing. It's like, there's so much that we get caught up in everyday world, and we think that it has to look a certain way. And
Yes.
have to open up and just say, wait,
Find your way. Yeah.
exactly.
And our ways are changing too. We
Yeah.
talked to our students about, it was honestly harder to quieten our mind. It was harder to access invisible realms historically. It really was. That veil between the everyday walking world and the spirit worlds was a lot thicker, a lot more dense historically. But that keeps shifting and shifting and broadening. So a lot of the ways that people historically used to quieten their mind, maybe with those long chants and ohms and eating a certain way and living a certain life, like we were lucky if we could even pierce that veil and go get invisible wisdom historically. But now that the veil is so thin and it's easy to go get information, some of us are thinking we still have to do all those things because I can't get it. It's like, well, you can't get it because it's just right there. You don't have to work so hard to go get it. So the advantage of this day and age is the information's just there at the ready. That's the bonus. But the disadvantage is if we want it to be mystical and magical, and like we've heard maybe in some of the literature, or you've heard some of your older teachers talk about, or authors that have written books, so that they have this lightning bolt and this and that and went through a tunnel and all these colors. It's like, it's not going to happen like that anymore because it's just right there to grab hold of. So it's like an advantage, but a disadvantage. If you want it to be mystical, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to be doubting yourself, and you'll go up in that monkey mind to say, well, I can't do this. It's like, or just come and take our class and we'll distract you enough to keep going with the exercises that you'll just have fun getting it. And you don't need to have it be mystical anymore. We can honor the history, obviously, but
we do like to make things difficult.
well,
We have to go through a whole process before we can get to the healing part. We have to do certain, it's funny because it's true. It's like we are evolving, and we are definitely evolving. There's more light in the world than we've ever had possible before.
Yeah.
These are our opportunities.
Nice. And we have to do it in our own way. I remember teaching a class. I had come back from Brazil. I was in Ottawa, and I had like limited clothing in my bag that was not too wrinkly and, hadn't been worn all the week before. And my plane was delayed, so, couldn't get it dry cleaned or whatever. So I came to class the next day and I had one of my favorite shirts on, which was red. It's my favorite color. And one of the students put her hand up right away before we started. She goes, are you going to teach us with that red shirt on? And I'm thinking, oh my God, does it have food on it? Like, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, well, sorry, what do you mean? She goes, like, it's red. It's like the base chakra. You shouldn't be teaching spiritual. I said, oh no. I said, well, this is my favorite shirt, and it's the only one that's not wrinkled in my bag. She goes, well, I don't know if I can learn from you. I said, sure, you can. Just turn your chair sideways. Don't look at me. And it'll be fine. But she just had a picture in her mind, like what was the rule, what was, the way to be enlightened or spiritual. And it was like, oh, sorry if I disappointed you. But she did really well in the class. She got over it. So
I remember somebody telling me, she goes, oh yes, she goes, in a couple of years, you're really going to get this. And then everything around you, your whole apartment's going to be white. I'm like, ew. Why would I want a white apartment?
Yes, you enjoy.
It's just not me.
That's what happens. We grab hold of a certain philosophy and it fits for us at the time when we like it, but then we try to make it everybody's philosophy. It's like, well, that's why we have smorgasbords and lots of different meals and flavors, because what works for you is not going to be what works for somebody else.
So true. So beautifully said too. But it's so funny because they expect us to be in all white. It's like, really?
Well, I'm in white. Didn't you know? Did you get the memo, Laurie?
Nope, sorry.
I also like white.
Well, liking white is great. Although I'm a bit clumsy, so wearing white cloth, it's going to be.
What if you have pets or grandchildren?
Which I do have pets. So, yep. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Breathe out.
Well, I'm so thrilled that your listeners are going to be able to enjoy, hopefully, some of our classes if they feel drawn to it, and that they're so lucky to have you as their mentor and their teacher, their friend, their ally, and that you've been doing it for so long. Thank you for being you and for holding that space that you hold for so many in these important times of change.
Thank you, but I would love to get to a place where I can somehow get a million people to read something or share something. I admired. I think I've known about you for a long time. There was a time, I don't even know if you remember, with Mallory and the TV stuff, but you
Oh
were,
gosh, yeah.
yeah, that's how I found out about you. So that was,
Wow.
yeah.
That was a little while ago. Yes, we were going to create. It was a wonderful offer to be, create a TV series about, knowing things and talking to spirits, and in particular the body. The medical intuition was very, very popular back then. But then unfortunately, and maybe today, if that opportunity, well, it wouldn't be here today because we're here now, not 20 years ago, but they just wanted to really sensationalize it all up, and I wanted it to be real. Like, hey, there's this great tool, and it's not all weird and magical and mystical. It's just normal. Like, we could use this tool in hospitals. We could use this. And it was like, no, that's not sensational enough. It's like to have somebody who could look in your body with X-ray eyes and you were in the hospital. That's not sensational. No, it's got to be,
Yeah. Well, I went to the meeting in New York, and when she came out, because I wasn't allowed to be actually in the meeting, but she said, yeah, I left the good stuff to the end. I want to inspire them with this stuff. I'm like, why would you, NBC, you had an appointment with NBC and you didn't give them your best stuff? Well, that's when I knew things were not going to go where we wanted them to go.
Yeah. Gosh, there's a throwback to the past.
I know, right? Sorry. Well, we've been at it a long time.
Yeah. We're getting older by the moment here. That's okay.
Oh, well.
It's nice to have seen the transitions and
shifts. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm so excited because I see so much going on that's going to just really, I'm glad to be even a part of sharing it with the world. So I really am honored that, that you're even doing it is just incredible. So kudos to you. And
thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Can't wait to hear what happens next. But
I know. Stay tuned. Later in the year, we'll have an update.
Will do.
All right. Take good care, Laurie. Thank
you. You've been listening to News for the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Laurie Wilson and intuition. Be one of the 1 million people that take her class, because it will shift your life. Thank you.